So how are you guys? So I saw Michael Romance. I'll insert that footage here. Good morning. It is actually 2 p.m., but I am leaving to go to the My Chemical Romance show. We were supposed to leave around noon. I think I misunderstood and they meant they would be leaving to come pick me up at noon. But anyways, it's Michael Romance time. Going to the Raleigh show. There's exclusive merch for the Raleigh show. I am moderately nervous about stuff selling out before I can get there, but it'll be fine. It'll be great. It's gonna be a good time. Hi, so originally my ambition was to actually vlog, at least the point A to point B. I wound up not doing that because I got scared. So instead I'm going to, narrate the experience for you. Also gonna go ahead from here until this timestamp. Gonna go ahead and give you a quick volume warning because there is gonna be concert footage, also flashing lights, all the typical concert footage warnings. So anyways, basically got to Raleigh, wound up getting at the show around the time Soul Glow went on, which led into this. I got it. So for context, from the first time we saw merch from the European leg, I knew I needed her in my life. I thought it was the funniest thing I had ever seen. Also, obviously, I got the hoodie. I also got just a regular tour shirt with like the Stone Lovers on the front. And I also got a tote bag, which, yes, I did spend $200-ish on merch. That's not a brag. That is a cry for help. Also, context for the next, like, 4 clips, we kept getting, like, jump scared, thinking that the show was starting, and it was absolutely not. So, like, this was pre-Vacuum Guy as a meme, but Vacuum Guy or whoever would walk out on stage and we'd all freak out. I feel like I'm over-explaining. Also, I'm gonna go ahead and apologize for my voice, for my friend sitting next to me's voice, because you can hear her, and I'm sitting there going, we are cringe, but we are free, we are cringe, but we are free, we are cringe, but we are free. Anyway, it doesn't get any better, so if you're gonna complain about that, just skip this section of the video, because it's just gonna be in there. I told you guys it would be unhinged. Anyway, the context for us freaking out about the shorts is that I had been routinely posting about and messaging my friends about Gerard's silly little outfits all throughout the EU leg. And then, of course, I think Nashville was the show right before Raleigh. So, of course, my, like, For You page on Instagram was just cheerleader Gerard by this point. Then he proceeded to wear the same shorts for, like, 4 shows in a row after this. I think he was like, hang on a minute, I gotta wait for Marina to finish making the rest of my costumes.
My 13-year-old daughter tried to make, we went to the M&M store in Las Vegas, and she tried to make orange M&Ms that said Advil on them. And they wouldn't let her. So then, I think she tried Slim Shady, wouldn't let her. They got a real, there's a lot of litigation. They just got a really long screening process. You can't do anything fun, basically. So, but anyway.
So, in the recording, you can hear better than I could at the time, that people, mostly down in the pit, made bird noises back at Gerard, but where I was sitting, I was the only person who made bird noises back at Gerard, and I felt really awkward. I heard your bird noises and reciprocated, Mr. Way.
Beautiful. No pockets, no problem. Beautiful. You, my friend, my bearded friend, you are beautiful. Let's fucking do it!
So, I decided not to include the footage of me getting taken by surprise by Boy Division, because it's really loud and really bad, almost to the point that I really want to apologize to the people who were, like, in front of me for, like, the first 30 seconds of that song, because I just screamed the lyrics, full-blown caterwauling, and I'm not gonna subject you guys to that. Like, to the point that I'm almost embarrassed. Like, was that, like, horrible concert etiquette? Probably. Which I was being very cognizant of, like, the rest of the night, because I was, like, being very diligent about not holding my phone up super high so it got in anyone's way. So really and truly, I was just repaying the favor because the people in front of me were constantly putting their phone up in front of my face. So, actually, it was retribution, and I don't feel bad at all now, actually. But I am sorry for screaming, but I'm not going to make you guys listen to that.
I'm sorry about throwing that. I'm sorry about throwing that water bottle earlier. It's definitely not COVID safe. Sorry. I'm kidding. I am fully chipped, my friends. Our team just told me there was something Stuck to the bottom of my shoe, I had to get up. I knew the whole time. I just thought you might not like it, so I kept it there. Speaking histrionics, you're being sagacious. One concern deserves a minute. I'm gonna set myself on fire. Never mind, I want you to set me on fire. I want you to set me on fire. 'Cause one concern deserves another. Play a song we never played before right now. All right, let's do it.
And then I proceeded to forget all of the words to Burn Bright. I don't know if you can hear it because I have a really hard time differentiating between my friend who is sitting next to me and my own voice recorded back with all the background noise. But I was openly sobbing by this point in the show. It started with Black Parade, and then it just kind of kept coming back in waves. So I think you can hear my voice crack, but I can't tell if that's my voice cracking or my friend next. Talking hurts so bad. I lost 2 nails and I cried twice. Anyways, I'm a different woman now. Gerard Way blew my tits clean off. They're gone now. They're gone now. Where do you think Ray got his? Anyways, I have been hyperfixated on MCR for about 7 or 8 months now. And then add the additional 7 months it took me to edit this video. In my defense, my computer is so old that it just crashes if I look at it wrong, so. And it has officially annoyed every single person in my life. So here I am, dissecting MCR albums like I am 12 years old and I just learned what a concept album is. And listen, if you want polished, thoughtful, video essay level dissections of My Chemical Romance's albums, you've simply come to the wrong place, my dear. This video is for the girlies who lost their mind when they played Sister to Sleep at LA. Just look at the title, Unhinged. you know what you're getting yourself into. Also, I am not a musician. The guitars in the background do not belong to me. I'm filming in my parents' basement because I live with my parents and I can't be loud upstairs. God, me and Gerard, just the same person post-grad, for real. But anyways, I am not a musician. My musical knowledge kind of begins and ends with a middle school concert band, which was about 10 years ago now. So I can like look at sheet music and like roughly tell you what's going on, but that's about it. So this video will be more of a narrative analysis of the storylines presented in each album, although I definitely will try to talk about music when I do feel like I can contribute something there. So with that caveat, let's start with the beginning. I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love is an interesting case because it is pretty much the only official My Chemical Romance album that is not technically a concept record. Sure, it has high concept songs, but overall there is not a connected narrative throughout the entire album. That's not to say that it's not important for later concept albums, but we'll get there when we get there. The thing about Bullets is it's actually my least favorite MCR record. Not that it's bad. I actually appreciate it now more than I did when I was younger, but it does really lack the polish of the later albums, which I know is appealing to some people, sort of the post-hardcore, more punk-leaning sound that the band definitely lost in the later years. But I've never bought into the idea that polish equals inauthenticity, so it doesn't really matter to me. After going through a phase where I listened to this album on my way to work pretty much every day for a month, I think why I don't really connect with Bullets as much as I do the later albums is just because it kind of lacks melodic hooks. Like, there are very few hooks within Gerard's lyrical part themselves. Again, I did preface this video by saying that I like music, but I'm not a music expert, hence why I am dissecting themes and not musical structure. Please no one yell at me and be like, actually, there is blah, 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 blah. If you would like to share in the comments, that is fine. Don't start with me though. But I will say most of the hooks from this album really do come from Ray Toro's just beautiful guitar riffs. Like seriously, romance, vampires, drowning lessons, headfirst for halos, just chef's kiss, such good guitar riffs in there. Ultimately, Bullets is a thesis statement. Many of MCR's recurring themes make their first appearance in Bullets. Themes of isolation, addiction, death, feelings of being lost and confused, and a refusal to conform to societal norms, things the band would become known for in later years, are all pivotal to Bullets' storytelling. Also, since Bullets doesn't technically have a narrative through line, I'm just gonna break down what I think are kind of the most important elements to this album and honestly the band as a whole. Honey, This Mirror Isn't Big Enough for the Two of Us opens the record, and already we have a relationship song that's not really about a relationship. I mean, it's not like Gerard has ever really given a straightforward answer about what any of these songs are like really about. It's either very vague and nebulous, like it's a metaphor, or it's
This song is about sucking dick for cocaine.
Yeah. I love how Gerard just says stuff. Just be like the intro to Prison will just be like, one day there was a man, and the man was walking down the road, and then a guy came up to him and shot him with a gun. And then that gun turned into a frog. Anyway, I'd argue that the song is actually about addiction, similar to Pierce the Veil's later Stay Away From My Friends, which frames anorexia or an eating disorder as a toxic former girlfriend. And this is a theme that becomes recurring not only just through Bullets, but also through MCR's entire discography. Like, yes, obviously some of those songs about relationships are about their IRL girlfriends or, you know, we all know Summertime is about your wife, Gerard. You say it every time you play it. But for instance, Drowning Lessons is, yes, literally about a toxic relationship, but depending on interpretations, could also be about killing parts of yourself that you dislike or are uncomfortable with. And I'm not gonna go too much into like Gerard way gender theory here, simply because there are people who are far more passionate about it than me, and also sometimes it begins to kind of cross a point where it starts feeling really, really parasocial and intrusive. That being said, I do think Drowning Lessons could definitely be about the narrator killing a undesirable feminine side of themselves. It could be about drowning out depression, anxiety, other unacceptable desires, take your pick. It's also worth noting that the narrator's suicidal ideations are also heavily tied to the narrator's girlfriend's death. Early Sunsets Over Monroeville is easily one of my favorite examples of this, and also just one of my favorite My Chem songs of all time. It's a high-concept song that is literally about the plot of Dawn of the Dead, but is obviously meant to be a metaphor about a dying relationship, just not necessarily a dying relationship with another person. For me, Early Sunsets truly does encapsulate what it feels like to lose yourself. The line, "Does anyone notice there's a corpse in this bed?" feels less like asking if anyone has noticed you and your significant other's love is dead, and more like asking, does anyone notice that I'm dead inside? And just like Drowning Lessons, Early Sunsets requires the narrator to kill a part of themselves. The part of themselves that had dreams and ambition, essentially killing your inner child that has had to become a zombie to the corporate machine. The part of yourself that you want to love and nurture, but you can't, so it becomes a zombie, a haunting, a corpse in this bed. Again, corporate burnout and hatred of the system are, again, extremely prevalent in later My Chem records, but they are definitely a key theme of Bullets. Basically, this album is about working dead-end jobs as a post-grad with a useless BFA, and I relate to that a lot. I have an extremely expensive piece of paper that says, I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in film and television production. I make good decisions. Vampires Will Never Hurt You is maybe the first song on this album to explore this idea. The idea that the vampires actually represent the soul/blood-sucking society that encourages people to give up on what actually gives them life and transforms them into bloodsuckers themselves. However, we cannot ignore the possibility that Gerard just took a massive bong rip, looked at Mikey, and said, "Dude, what if we wrote a song about vampires? Wouldn't that just slap?" And he was right. This Is the Best Day Ever also explores themes of being trapped and burnt out in a place that does not care for you. But I do not care for that song, so we will be skipping over it for the Superior Cubicles, I'm sorry. No, I've listened to that song probably 100 times, and the only lyric that sticks with me at any given point is "Every hour on the hour they draw blood." See my point about this album lacking hooks. Anyways, Cubicles takes any of the metaphor away from vampires, instead facing the isolation and crushing emotional toll of working in an office as a creative head on. As we all know, office jobs are second only to working retail in terms of jobs that people who got BFAs do and want to kill themselves during. Not that I would know anything about that. I'm so good, you guys. I'm so normal. Again, you clicked on this video. You saw that it said Unhinged in the title. You have to understand that this is both a vent video and a breakdown. It's a breakdown in both senses of the word. Cubicles also definitely feels like a direct sequel to the botched murder of your inner desires and dreams in Early Sunsets. However, the album definitely has those threads of hope that MCR always seems to intertwine with their work. Hell, the band's thesis statement, the first words Gerard put to paper for the band was, "You're not in this alone." Even when later songs directly contradict this, songs like Our Lady of Sorrows and even Headfirst for Halos and Drowning Lessons offer bits and pieces of hope. They offer community, a rallying cry to fight against the pain that the world throws against you. While most of Bullets is not a concept album, there is one song that begins to paint a picture. Two lovers driving through the desert, committing crimes to keep their gas tank full. It's a story of violence, ending with the two dying in a pool of their own blood. I mean, they come back. Gerard has a thing for killing off characters and then bringing them back. I think it's a comic book thing. This is the story of a man, a woman, and the corpses of 1,000 evil men. Demolition Lovers sets the scene for what Gerard refers to as a pseudo-conceptual album, which obviously there's like a sliding scale of like what a concept album like contains, but Three Cheers rests pretty firmly on like the central narrative, but the songs are also mostly about the real lives of the band end of the spectrum. That being said, I am very grateful to have a narrative to cling to here. Like, I fully intended to have this video filmed like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but trying to like pull through like Gerard's vague poetry and assign meaning to it felt like dancing about architecture, which is a quote that I stole from somebody else, but it is very true, is so true. I also want to go ahead and present the theory that both of the demo lovers are meant to represent two sides of Gerard, that every song is essentially a conversation with two different sides of himself. I reference this interpretation here and there throughout this section of the video, so if you've never heard of it before, just take a look at the album art. I do remember hearing that the demo groom was allegedly based physically on Frank, but like if you look at the Stone Lovers shirt like really closely, both of them being Gerard just makes way more sense. The album opens with Helena, which I always viewed as a funeral scene, both due to the music video and due to the fact that the demo groom is dead. Which, by the way, for like years, I thought Three Cheers was basically just like a dark, messed up version of the Orpheus myth, where like the bride dies and the groom makes a deal with the devil to bring her back, but like he ultimately fails at that. But apparently she survives, not him. We love to see a girl boss winning. That being said, Helena is also famously about Gerard and Mikey's grandmother, who passed away while they were touring off of bullets. Gerard himself even says that the song is about two little boys who lost their grandma, and the reason I'm throwing that in there is because if I have to be sad, you have to be sad too. Anyways, it makes logical sense to me that this song would also mark the beginning of the demo groom's quest to be reunited with the bride. Somewhere between the first two tracks, the demo groom makes a deal with the devil, saying that if he can bring the souls of 1,000 evil men to hell, the devil will allow him to leave and reunite with the bride. So it is kind of like a horrifically violent backwards retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice, even if it is unintentional. There's only like, what, 8 stories, right? The album then moves into Give 'Em Hell Kid, which, if we are operating under the assumption that demo lovers are Gerard warring with two sides of himself, best damn dress you own, huh? Anyways, this song kind of serves as a response to the We'll Meet Again in Helena. Also, at this point, the bride is completely unaware of the groom's deal with the devil, and the groom begins the process of reaping 1,000 evil souls. To the end is the first of many killing sprees, wherein the groom crashes a rich guy's wedding and murders the entire party. Also, somebody on the Genius page suggested that this was the same wedding as Drowning Lessons, which I don't think beyond Demolition Lovers, Bullets and Three Cheers were really meant to be connected that much, but it did get me thinking. Put a pin in that. Also, I love Genius's comment section because because it's stuff like this. Like, I know this is somebody being funny, but I also love the idea that Gerard has Bob blocked on like all social media and has his phone number blocked, so he has to like reach out by commenting on Genius pages. Why you kick me out of the band, Gerard? Gerard, why you kick me out of the band? Anyways, Comrade Demo Groom eats the rich and is arrested for it, which leads us to You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison, which Genius also says is not inspired by anyone in the band, but tell that to Ray Toro, known stealer of batteries from the Walmart.
And it's about Ray going to jail because he stole some batteries last summer, and he had to fly out to Iowa to go to court. 2 fucking batteries the guy stole. He was in jail. It's called You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison.
I also really love the implication that the demo groom had like a prison husband and accomplices. Like maybe that's why the deal with the devil didn't work. But anyways, like good for him. Everyone needs friends. Then we get to I'm Not Okay, which admittedly has nothing to do with the concept, but I'm going to force it anyways because it will be funny. The album's not a linear narrative, so this scene is like a flashback of the groom in prison, reminiscing on his early years with the demo bride, and things were like less than stellar. That's why the music video is set in high school. Is this anything? I don't think it is. My girl's small enough to fit in a locker. My girl's the size of an Xbox. Anyways, you like D&D, Audrey Hepburn, Fangoria, Harry Houdini, and croquet. Returning to the actual story, The Ghost of You also works well with the theory that the groom is reminiscing. Also, this is yet another example of MCR songs being about real life and the concept because this song is about how Mikey Way died for this country. God bless America, support our troops! Ghost of You also serves as a humanizing moment, showing how haunted he is by losing the demo bride and how much he misses her. The rage and deals with the devil fade away to pure grief with lines like, showing not only his fears of never being reunited with her, but also paralleling the divide that the bride also senses and give him hell. Jet Set Life continues to explore the groom's murder spree, although through the doubt and Ghost of You, we can clearly see the slow realization that maybe, just maybe, the devil tricked him. It's almost like notoriously deals with the devil don't end well. The song is literally about Gerard's struggles with addiction, which, again, in their own way, are much like a deal with the devil. Again, this is a pseudo-conceptual album. They kind of forget about the concept for a solid chunk of the songs. The groom also just seems to be aware that this mission will be his own demise. The Hotel Bella Muerte he checks into is clearly meant to be a reference to suicide, checking into your own beautiful death, as well as the imagery of the killing jar and the frequent references to the last night I lie. Interlude brings the groom's faith into question. While he's literally gone to hell and is making deals with the devil, he's still calling upon saints to protect the bride. I also think it's just really, really funny that the working title for this one was, If We're Not Careful, We'll Turn Into Catholics. Thank You for the Venom does continue to drift away from the concept, but it really does add to the reading that Gerard is both the demo groom and the demo bride. You can make the argument that Gerard is the groom in the throes of his addiction, while the bride is the side of himself that wants to recover and get better, but the addict side is too deep on its mission to seek revenge, running after something that you'll never kill. The groom's aware that he's pretty much past redemption, and we continue to see the self-awareness that this mission won't end well, but he just can't back out now. He's a bad man. Kick him like a stray. Again, put a pin in that. Moving on to Hang 'em High, we see the groom still really clinging to this delusion that'll all work out in the end and they'll just be reunited and happy. The groom continues to rack up his kill count, but at this point the demo bride is completely aware of what he's doing and is attempting to stop him. But then we get to, it's not a fashion statement, it's a death wish. And ooh boy, we have hit more plot. The demo groom is nearing the end of his journey and begins truly grappling with the weight of his actions. We also know for a fact that the demo bride is aware of what he's doing and is pissed. And also the demo groom is now aware that he'll have to die in order to fulfill his deal, and he is also pissed. He's going to kill the 1,000 evil men to atone for the person that he's become. And it seems almost like he's ready to get back at the devil for tricking him in the first place, having lost his fear of falling. He knows that even if he must remain dead, he'll still be with her one day. However, that day comes sooner rather than later as the demo bride kills herself, leading us into Cemetery Drive. A song that I thought was about the demo bride and groom getting trashed in a graveyard before the final showdown, and I never told you what I do for a living, but that's what Genius told me, and I guess it works. Again, Cemetery Drive is more about the band's real life and the isolation and darkness that comes along with being famous for being the teenage girl suicide band, which was absolutely what they were still known for even when I got into them around 2011. I Never Told You What I Did for a Living serves as the official end of the story. The demo groom knows that he is the 1000th evil man, and he kills himself, sealing the deal. However, I do think the devil does hold up his end of the deal in a twisted way. He reunites them in hell after the demo bride kills herself. After the release of 3 Cheers, the band released a documentary/live album called Life on the Murder Scene, which also featured a demo and cut song from 3 Cheers. The demo, Bury Me in Black, presents a much angrier ending for the demo groom. Bury Me in Black has much darker implications than the cautiously optimistic resignation of the album's official ending. The groom is angry with the bride after all he's done to be with her, and angrily rants about how she's betrayed him by continuing to live. The song even implies that, like, he killed her so they could be in, like, hell together, but in the official album, she killed herself. God, this story is a hot mess, and Gerard called it pseudo-conceptual for a reason.
Baby girl, can you slur your words anymore? Oh my god.
Then there is Desert Song, which Gerard himself has stated he wished he'd used to close the album. It's a final haunting address to the demo bride in the context of the story, but as a personal song for both Gerard and myself, it's a deeply moving song about struggling with mental health, lacking a stable community, and the transient nature of existence. From the lights to the pavement, from the earth to the morgue. I won't trauma dump on you guys. This video is supposed to be fun, but God, Desert Song does something to me, and while I am still mad I wasn't there for it live, it's probably a good thing because they would have had to carry me out in the stretcher. I'm gonna keep that stumble in there because I don't want to redo that part. I'm intentionally not looking at it because I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be sad. Overall, 3 Cheers expounds on the themes of death, internal struggle, and lack of self-worth that was introduced in Bullets. Of course, MCR would give a true concept album a swing in their next release. The Black Parade follows the life and afterlife of a character called the Patient. While songs took inspiration from real life, this album is much more of a true concept album with much more of a straightforward narrative than 3 Cheers. Which, oh thank God, I am so tired of digging through each song lyric by lyric to figure out exactly what's going on. The album begins with The End, a David Bowie and Pink Floyd inspired track that introduces us to the patient's melancholy viewpoint and dissects his low self-esteem and struggles with identity.
If you look in the mirror and don't like what you see, you can find out firsthand what it's like to be me. Another contusion, my funeral jag. Here's my resignation, I'll serve it in drag.
Which was a very different line originally. The patient flatlines at the end of The End, which transitions into Dead, which is told both from his perspective and the perspective of his doctor and mother in the final days of his life. The patient's mother in particular will become a central character in the album later on, but we will get to her later. Dead also sets up how the album is mostly told as a reflection of the patient's life in reverse chronological order, with occasional flashes forward to the present. Also, one of the darkest secrets of this album is hidden in this song. Once I play it for you, you will never be able to unhear it.
Guess who?
Right, Tora, what the actual hell is wrong with you? How I Disappear takes us another step back in the timeline, depicting a conversation with somebody important to the patient, most likely the lover from I Don't Love You. At this point, the patient has been pushing away loved ones, most likely for quite some time.
I'm really lost with you anymore. I'm just a ghost, so I can't hurt you anymore. You wanna see how far down I can sink?
It also sets up how he is a morally complicated individual. The Sharpest Lives continues this exploration of the patient's moral ambiguity, revealing that he's fallen into substance abuse due to the trauma of the war that he fought in. He openly mocks his loved ones and pushes them away in favor of people who hurt him.
This alone, you're in time for the show. You're the one that I need, I'm the one that you loathe. You can watch me corrode like a beast in repose, cause I love all the poison away with the boys in the band.
He's clearly losing control of himself in the time leading up to his diagnosis and dead, but he still manages to cling to some of his humanity and love for those in his life.
Where are you going?
Join the Black Parade!
This video truly is something I would have made in the 9th grade.
Actually, I think it's F sharp now. It's interesting though, because it makes the song live now sound a lot happier, which I think is very fitting, but we will also save the schmaltz for the end of the video, where it belongs. Gerard created the concept of the Black Parade based on his own ideas of death, stating, "I'd like to think that when you die, death comes for you however you want, and I feel it's your strongest memory, either from childhood or adulthood." It's our first return to the patient's present afterlife, also introducing that he was not always the fraught disaster of a person that we're introduced to in earlier songs. Instead, Welcome to the Black Parade introduces him as a child with ambitions from both him and his father to make the world a better place. The Black Parade also shows us that the patient is an unreliable narrator, as lines from this song directly contradict lines from Dead. It seems like somebody in his life had empathy for him, be it his lover, his mother, although that one's unlikely based on the context of Mama, his father, or even the parade itself, whether it is a real supernatural entity or just a deathbed-induced hallucination. Also, the entire breakdown at the end of the song shows that the patient still has maintained some of the goodness that is present in his childhood dreams to save the broken, the beaten, and the damned.
Till we die, you'll never make me, because the world will never take my heart. Go and try, you'll never break me.
I Don't Love You returns us to the narrative of the patient's downward spiral before death. The patient has continued to drive his lover away, but is also unable to fully insult or commit to driving that person away. Gerard has described the song as being about being dead and people not liking you, which, combined with the patient being an unreliable narrator, may show some projection of the self-loathing shown in the end onto the patient's partner. House of Wolves is kind of up in the air for me timeline-wise. Either way, it's the patient's glance into hell, both reintroducing the religious trauma from Three Cheers and showing us that despite insistences otherwise, the patient does feel some guilt over what he's done in his life. Whether this is actually a flash forward or a fantasy of what the patient believes is waiting for him in the afterlife, we clearly see a painting of someone who is deeply disturbed by their own actions, but is also unwilling to give up the facade of toughness and embracing all the evil that he's done. Cancer continues to show the dichotomy between the patient's actions and true feelings. There are readings of this song that drive more into the vague metaphor that Gerard describes it as, which thanks for that one, G. Really, really helpful. But one of the more popular ones I've seen describes it as a metaphor for AIDS, which lines about being buried in your favorite colors, calling an aunt instead of parents, and the aforementioned original line from the end could make sense. Either way, cancer deeply humanizes the patient. It reveals all the fear and pain he has been repressing and how he does truly still love the people in his life. Then, there is Mama. In this song, we see the patient reflect on the horrors of war and also the cruelties he was forced to enact during it. We also see the return of his mother character, who is composited with the character of Mother War, both of whom deeply traumatized him and cared for him in dark, complicated ways. Mother War traumatized him through violence and brutality. His actual mother traumatized him through religion, where he openly mocks her, saying, Everyone goes to hell, and hell is both on earth and after death. There is no room in this hell, there is no room in the next. I'm not gonna unpack that parallel, but oh. Of course, this has become the gender song due to the bridge. You know the bridge. I'm not gonna unpack that here, namely because I would not be the correct person to unpack that here. But if this song makes you feel seen, absolutely good for you. It makes me feel seen in different ways, so. Next is Sleep, which was inspired by Gerard's nightmares that he had while recording the album at the Paramore Mansion.
These terrors. And it feels like as if somebody was gripping my... these terrors. And it feels like as if somebody was gripping my throat.
In the context of the album, the patient tries to sleep through the pain of chemo, of trauma, but is kept awake by nightmares, tormented by visions of losing loved ones, contributing to the downward spiral at the beginning of the album. In fact, it's entirely possible that these nightmares reveal to him just how fearful he is of losing his loved ones, which is why he begins pushing them away in the first place. Sleep also shows the patient's guilt and confusion surrounding his own identity in the wake of trauma, as well as how he's unapologetic for his actions both before and during the war, while also fearing the fate that awaits him. However, when we get to teenagers, there is a bit of a split in the fandom's interpretations. A lot of people write it off like not okay, a single meant to sell the album without much context within the album itself. However, I think there's a much stronger argument to be made for teenagers as an integral part of Black Parade. In Teenagers, we see what the patient was like before the war and before his cancer diagnosis. We see him put on medication for mental illness, thrown into the murder machine. He's aggressive and outcast, seeing how he was chewed up and spat out by the system. It also ties directly into Disenchanted, where the patient starts to reflect on his teenage years and how even at a young age, he was disenchanted by life and disinterested in what everyone else tried to sell him.
I spent my high school career spit on and shoved to agree, so I can watch out my heroes sell a car on TV. Bring it the young guillotine, we'll show 'em what we all mean.
He views it all as pointless, his life and the cog he became in the war. Anyways, this was my absolute favorite MCR song as a teenager. Mikey Way, thank you for whispering this song into everyone's ears at night to put the song on the album. I will forever have a core memory of me listening to this on my old iPod with my headphones in, walking through like the breezeways at my high school and just feeling like I was in a music video. It was delightful, thank you. The entire album is dark and depressing, reflecting on death and the futility of life. That is Until Famous Last Words, which is the My Chem song of all time. Not necessarily my favorite, more like my third favorite, but it is the most important. Like, surprise! The patient isn't dead. Maybe. It's up to interpretation. Speaking of Mikey Way, thank you, Michael James Way. I'm so sorry you had a mental breakdown, but this song slaps, so thanks for inspiring it. You are the spark of the band. Do not let anyone tell you that Mikey is not a pivotal part of My Chemical Romance. But this song, the hope, the willingness to continue onwards, it is a much needed breath of fresh air in an overwhelmingly dark album. Maybe the patient lives and goes on with a new lease on life. Maybe he dies and actually winds up in heaven, knowing that none of his wrongs were actually because he wanted to hurt anyone. Whatever it is, it's a cautiously optimistic ending to the album of all time. And that's the beauty of MCR as a whole. That cautious optimism, that willingness to carry on through cartilage and fluid. You're not in this alone. Famous Last Words just embodies all of that in a way that's almost impossible to understand if you haven't listened to at least one of their songs during one of your darkest moments. Oh, and Blood is there. Anyways, just because you're willing to keep on living doesn't mean living doesn't still kind of suck. So drink my blood, vampire doctors. Or vampire nurse. The Black Parade is a culmination of 3 albums that all build upon themes of troubled minds and isolated existences. You can tell Gerard really did envision this as the end of the band, or at least hadn't really imagined a future beyond it. It had to end on a positive note. That meaningful perseverance is the core of MCR's existence. Anyways, remember that pin from 3 Cheers? We're pulling that out now. Okay, so we need to talk about this merch that dropped from when we were young. It's old demo lovers, and it implies so much. They healed. They survived. They grew old together. I mean, it is like way more likely that this was just like a jab at the When We Were Young festival, because it's one of those just disaster dumpster fire festivals that MCR notoriously just hates playing at. But it's the same with the merch bold letter t-shirt. Although I would absolutely wear that shirt. I think it's really funny. That being said, I think we have to enter into the possibility that we are looking at an MCRCU, the My Chemical Romance cinematic universe, right now. Because you know who else we think is dead, but is actually implied to be alive at the end? The Patient. Okay, what if The Patient is the demo groom? I mean, it's all Gerard, right? Like, based on Gerard being the main lyricist for the band, all the stories and the concepts come from him, right? Like he's the demo lovers, he's the patient, we already knew he was party poison, like that was kind of already a thing. Anyways, it's all Gerard. And it's coming to wide cinema release in 2024. Yeah, that was the pin. That was the pin. It was all just for a stupid joke I thought of in the middle of the night. You're welcome. Also, I'm looking at my notes, I'm looking at my script that I wrote. And I was writing part of this on the same night as the first night of When We Were Young, which was technically the second night because the first night got canceled, but anyway. But the real story of 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge is Vampire Mikey coming back from the dead to drain the life out of the rest of the band for leaving him for dead on that beach. According to my notes, I wrote that at 2:24 a.m. and I put it in the script at 3:47 a.m. Anyways, Danger Days! It has dawned on me that the impact of the outfit changes will be diminished by the fact that literally all of the shirts are black. So Danger Days is kind of weird. It came as the result of a scrapped album and was a sharp turn from the darkness of Black Parade. I like to call it more of a vibes concept album because it's far more concerned with giving off the vibe of the world it's set in rather than telling like a full story. Also, there are 3 main timelines for Danger Days. So there's the original concept album, the music videos, and the California comics that were based off the music videos, although the California comics also kind of diverge into a different direction from the music videos. And then there's 2021's National Anthem, which has nothing to do with the original comic, videos, or album, other than that it was the original inspiration for the album. Anyways, for my own sanity, instead of doing like a complete album breakdown where I went through song by song like I did with the first 3, instead I'm going to give you a vibes rundown of the album, explore some of its themes, and then give you some analysis of the comics and how all of that overlaps. So let's do this. Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys revolves around a post-apocalyptic 2019 following a nuclear war that laid waste to the world beyond Battery City. Everything is controlled by a giant mega-corporation called Better Living Industries, and MCR live in the desert as the Fabulous Killjoys. The album is narrated by pirate radio DJ Dr. Death Defying. Pretty much all the plot we get in the album comes from him, particularly in the tracks Jetstar and the Cobra Kid / Traffic Report and Goodnight Dr. Death. the former of which describes a clap between BLI exterminators and Jetstar and the Cobra Kid, two members of the Fabulous Killjoys, which results in their untimely deaths. In Goodnight Dr. Death signs off from his radio show, and it high-key implies that he's also been murdered by BLI. Not that Dr. Death's segments are the sole sources of lore in the original album. Na 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 introduces many elements of the setting. Battery City, the city controlled by BLI. Juvie Hall is a place where runaway children can escape to the zones outside of Battery City. Ritalin rats, people strung out on BLI-approved drugs to keep them compliant and under control. Destroya, despite being predominantly known as the horny moaning one, introduces the badass giant robot Jesus allegory Destroya. Although the song itself doesn't describe the robot much beyond Destroya, we're all waiting for ya. And Scarecrow is the name of the exterminators that work for BLI. Overall, I think Danger Day's biggest contribution to the band's legacy is thematic. It's easily MCR's most political album, although most of the messaging is not unimportant, but fairly run-of-the-mill critiques of capitalism and consumerism. All I'm saying is that Sing did not land Gerard Way on an FBI watch list. There is a member of MCR on an FBI watch list, and it was for a very different song in a very different band. Na 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 contains critiques of consumerism in the overly polished world of the music industry with lines like "eat plastic surgery" and "Bulletproof Heart" describes running from the oppressive regime of BLI. "Sing" is a rallying cry to speak out against the injustices of the world. "Planetary Go" demands touching on the themes of apocalyptic destruction and the way the powers that be want to dance around it. Again, despite being known as the horny song, Destroya is easily MCR's most political song, another critique of capitalistic overconsumption, asking, it also critiques organized religion and how it is frequently used to hurt others. And of course, Vampire Money was written as a direct response to money-hungry execs trying to force them to write a song for Twilight. Also them closing out When We Were Young Weekend 1 with Vampire Money and shooting fake money in the crowd at a show that is meant to be pure nostalgia bait sellout nonsense. Who is doing it like them? Literally who? Songs like Save Yourself, I'll Hold Them Back and Scarecrow depict two different variations on post-apocalyptic battles. Save Yourself depicting a suicide mission against the oppressor, but is much more literally about not committing suicide as a message to the fans, and Scarecrow being about protecting a child from the harsh truths of nuclear war. Speaking of children, you may have noticed that I haven't mentioned a central Danger Days character yet, the girl. Well, she doesn't really exist on the album, and instead is a bigger part of the music videos and later the comics. Speaking of, let's talk about the music videos. Na 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 introduces us to the world of the Killjoys and gives us their true identities, which the music video came out before the album, so at least we were given that information. But like, imagine listening to the whole album before you ever saw a music video and being like, who's this Jetstar? The Cobra Kid? Are they members of the band? Which members? Are they random people? Are they people at all? The video also introduces us to the girl who My Chem are protecting from BLI agents, and of course, a BLI exterminator tasked with killing the Killjoys, portrayed by comic book legend and friend of Gerard's, Grant Morrison. No, seriously, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that pitch to the rest of the band.
Hey guys, so I know that last album was kind of a downer, and we were on tour for like 2 years straight. We all nearly died like 3 times, and we've really been struggling to get this one together. But You know, I think I have an idea. What if this album is about us in a post-apocalyptic wasteland protecting this little girl, and we have like laser guns, and there's an evil corporation.
Gerard, is this just your latest RPG campaign?
No? I mean, it sounds cool. Thank you, Ray. And yeah, we could have, you know, like these cool costumes, this sick car, and the villain is Grant Morrison.
What was that last part?
So Grant asked to be in the video. Hey, come on, dude. You love Doom Patrol. Yeah, whatever. We all know why Gerard wants Grant to come. I have no idea what you're talking about. No. It is not about that.
The problem.
It is not about
you
that.
are the problem.
Like, you're like, oh, we're gonna go out in the
not
woods
about that.
to pretend
And,
to
like,
be like
you always
dead
make it like
elves.
this is
like
why-
maybe
this is
some of
why
us just
the
want to
other
be
one
like
didn't work out
chill
because of you.
and normal about things
Solely because of you.
Frank,
Frank, you have ever been chill
Right.
about anything in your life, Frank? Have you ever been chill about anything in your life? Gerard, calm down. You know why Frank
That is not
like
the point.
this.
That
He
is
was
not
an only
the
child.
point.
He never learned
That
how
is
to
not
share.
the
He never
point.
learned how to share. Why does it always turn into
I
this?
can be so
Why
chill
does
and
it
normal
always
about
turn
things.
into this? What if I did sick-ass karate moves in the video?
Mikey Way, you are a genius? Hell yeah, Mikey Way.
God, Mikey, why are you such a mastermind? Despite what has been presented in this video, I am not a Mikey girl. Anyways, the Na 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 video ends with the girl being kidnapped by BLI, and the Killjoys presumably dead until Party Poison opens their eyes. Yep, told you Gerard likes killing and reviving characters. Sing picks up where Na 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 left off. The Killjoys storm Battery City in an attempt to save the girl, only to be killed off one by one. This is a direct result of Poison realizing that the Draculoids they fight are human beings, who it's later revealed in the comics have had their souls stolen and brains washed by BLI. Course, in particular, is shown to be a sleeper agent controlled by BLI's head, whose name I could not find for the life of me, but I feel like she was referred to as the Operator. Anyways, the girl escapes with Dr. Death-defying, and while extended cuts of the video were released well after the band's breakup suggest the Killjoys faked their death, the comics go on to state that they are, in fact, dead. There is also a music video for Kids From Yesterday, but it's a clip show and not a video tied to Danger Days lore, so I'm not really gonna dive into it, sorry. Killjoys California picks up a decade after the events of the music videos. The girl has been living in the desert alone with only her cat for company. She comes across Party Poison's mask at a junk shop, which is immediately stolen by Val Velocity and his crew of Killjoys. Val is a ruthlessly violent, faithless Killjoy who views the original four, now rewritten as teenagers who fought in the analog wars opposed to former American rock band My Chemical Romance, as failures in their quest to fight against BLI. The girl spends the series bouncing back and forth between Val's crew and Agent Cherry Cola, a friend of the original Killjoys and somewhat of a father figure to the girl. Cherry Cola argues for a more peaceful resolution to the conflict between BLI and the Killjoys, while Val calls for violence, reflecting the album's themes of oppressor versus oppressed and how exactly to deal with that. In B and C plots, we meet porno droids Red and Blue, who plan to escape Battery City and find Destroya, a giant robot who is a legend amongst most of the city's androids as a godlike figure who will come and rescue them from BLI's oppressive hand. Here we see BLI's negligence, a direct commentary on the American healthcare system and how it systemically kills off those who are poor or seen as undesirables to the system. In the C-plot, we see Course grapple with the same empathy Poison showed him, especially after falling in love with a man outside of BLI's wishes. He has his Scarecrow status revoked, and ultimately lets Blue go when the two run into each other, leading to BLI's attempt to reprogram him. Meanwhile, it is revealed that the girl has the power to free the souls of those under BLI's control, which is why they are so intent on capturing her. The girl has a conversation with the Phoenix Witch, who is easily one of the coolest depictions of death I've ever seen in media, who explains to her that she can save everyone without hurting anyone. One of the main themes of Danger Days is overcoming adversity through the power of love. Previous MCR albums have next to no love songs, but Danger Days has 3 or 4. This is partially, yes, because Gerard got married between Black Parade and Danger Days, but
I think it's also because the album genuinely wants to get across this idea that love and community are necessary for survival. Kids from Yesterday really drives this point home.
We don't care about the message or the rules they make. We'll find you when the sun goes black. And you only live forever in the lights you make.
I mean, we also get some mixed messaging in Love Won't Stop This Bomb and Scarecrow, but at least they're realistic. This is how California ends, with the girl freeing the souls without violence, proving to Val and the others that Cherry Cola was right, and what is more important to the world than violence is empathy. Anyways, I know Gerard has terrible Star Wars opinions. Saving what we love, whatever. Ray Toro, on the other hand, come sit at my table. Let's discuss Poe Dameron. Then we get to National Anthem, which is its own can of worms that has very little to do with the original album. National Anthem moves away from the concept of the girl and the more traditional post-apocalyptic setting, instead depicting a world that is whitewashed and sanitized by mass drug usage and an all-powerful corporation. Different factions of killjoys enjoy their time rebelling together as teenagers until they are all brought down in a massive shootout that ends up killing protagonist Mike Milligram's lover, and resulting in him giving up and becoming one of the masses. I won't dive as deep into this comic simply because it doesn't really have that much relevance on the actual album, but I will talk about the themes because, hey, more of the same. Somebody said on Goodreads that Gerard writes comics kind of in the same way that he writes music, in that he's more concerned with a vibe and an energy than the actual plot. And I think this explains why I tend to like his music a lot more than I tend to like his comic book work. I already have plans of making a video talking about Umbrella Academy and the changes that the adaptation for that made, but that's a topic for another video. That being said, I did enjoy both of the comics, and if nothing else, the art is stunning. I don't have it with me, but I do actually have like the big, huge, like special collector's edition version of National Anthem, and I don't regret dropping, what, 40, 50 bucks on it, so. Also, Gerard, I know you're into puke, but you gotta tone it down. Like, I'll spare you showing you the imagery, but it's in both comics. Blech. We see more themes of societal pressure to conform, feelings of isolation, and a hatred of having a real job that dates all the way back to Bullets. However, National Anthem feels more mature, instead recognizing that growing up is a part of life, but growing up is not giving up. It feels like a sequel to Cubicles, almost. You will not die alone. I'll find you when the sun goes black. Overall, Danger Days was an experiment more than anything. Ultimately, it wound up being very mixed in terms of reception. Some people loved it, some people hated it, critics were kind of meh on it. And it wound up being one of the less financially viable properties that MCR ever released, despite having pretty much their only #1 hit on rock radio with Na Na Na. It was kind of a warning sign of the things that were to come, particularly as they started touring off the album, and it became abundantly clear that mental health issues and struggles with relapsing into addiction were going to become a major problem from here on out. That being said, I definitely cherish the memories that I have from this album. This was like my first MCR album. I got into MCR about a year after it came out, and ultimately I think it's, just like its reception, a mixed bag of interesting themes and concepts, and sometimes less than spectacular execution. Hey, so recording this took a lot longer than I planned on it taking, just like the writing process. So we're just gonna pretend that I changed my hair, makeup, and lost all my fake nails in the course of about 30 minutes as opposed to a week. Following the mixed reception to Danger Days, the band decided to return to the Black Parade for inspiration for their 5th album, returning to the darker, grittier place that had inspired that album. However, it ultimately just kind of fell apart. Both Gerard and Mikey had struggled with mental health and addiction relapses. Ray and Frank just could not work together at that point, and it was becoming abundantly clear that it was about time to pull the plug on the My Chemical Romance experiment. So on March 22nd, 2013, after releasing a series of singles that were originally intended to be My Chemical Romance's fourth album before Danger Days, titled Conventional Weapons, the band announced their official breakup. So Conventional Weapons isn't technically an album, and even though I am a Conwep stan, I would honestly rank Conwep over both Danger Days and Bullets in terms of if we're talking about MCR album rankings. However, I really feel like I don't have much to say about Conventional Weapons that I haven't already said before. A, doesn't have a narrative, and B, it's a lot of the same stuff. There's just a lot of anger and vitriol towards the industry, towards society, towards themselves. And also, at that point in time, they were being forced to almost perform and conform by the industry. It was a lot of that vampire money nonsense of do this, do that. It's what fans expect. It's what the execs expect. And I absolutely don't fault them for feeling like they've lost their genuineness, and why that was also a contributing factor to the breakup on top of the personal health issues. I mean, like, it really does show. I mean, the album is full of songs about your enemies killing you on, like, live TV while your fans watch on. Songs about dying and leaving your loved ones behind, and songs about, sticking it to the man. As much as I love Conwep, it's basically just a less cohesive version of Danger Days. Boy Division is the song of all time, though. However, despite the breakup, there is one lingering mystery to pre-breakup MCR, a final fifth record that never saw the light of day. That record was The Paper Kingdom.
And stage set, and it's going to be this storyline about a support group of parents who are dealing with the loss of their children.
Whoa. So
they make up this story about the children all being missing in the woods and fighting this witch. And that was what it was about.
Did you have a name for it?
Yeah, it was called The Paper Kingdom.
Paper Kingdom has been routinely described as My Chemical Romance's darkest album, but beyond that, it's mostly just shrouded in mystery. Even the amount of songs recorded for the album is up for debate. Some sources, including, although I couldn't find a source for his exact quote myself, Gerard, say that the album only had about 6 songs recorded, whereas former keyboardist and very brief final fifth member of MCR, James DeWeese, said in an interview that it was as many as 26 songs. It's possible that James and Gerard had very different ideas about what a finished song was, although it is possible that there were as many as 26 songs in varying states of completion by the time that the album was ultimately scrapped. The only Paper Kingdom song we ever got an official release for was Fake Your Death, which was released on the band's Greatest Hits album and is supposedly radically different from the rest of the album, which is kind of like trying to use teenagers to describe what Black Parade is like as a whole. So while I was planning out this video, a couple of short snippets that were claiming to be leaks from Paper Kingdom were released, and it does seem like they were real because not only have re-uploads of the clips been deleted almost immediately from YouTube, the actual original Reddit post, which I was going to link in the description, and I still will because there's some discussion in the comments that's interesting, but the original Reddit post, the links to the leaks have been deleted. So if you really, really want to hear the leaks, I am sure there are ways you can find them online. I'm sure someone on Tumblr or Twitter posted links that are still accessible. But I personally am not interested in getting all of my hard work removed because I chose to put links to leaked material, not footage, leaked material in the description. Also, just out of respect for the band, I don't really feel comfortable sharing those leaks because they wrote this album when they were in a really bad place, and ultimately I don't feel like it's my business to share media that they never planned on being released to the public. However, the leaks do sound extremely similar to Hesitant Alien, which confirms A, rumors that the album was very heavily keyboard based, which a lot of people inferred based on the fact that DeWeese did briefly become a full member, and B, also opens up a lot of speculation about what songs, if any, from Gerard or other members' solo careers might have originally been intended for Paper Kingdom.
By acknowledging foundations in this part, I'm going to ruin a joke that I'm going to make later. However, we are all going to experience that very convenient mass amnesia that they keep throwing into, I think it was like the Marvel movies, or it might have been Star Wars. It's one of those bloated needs to die franchises that Disney keeps milking. Anyway, so we're gonna forget in about 5 minutes so that the joke is still funny. Anyways, Foundations being a Paper Kingdom song was more just like brief, excited, panicked speculation from when Foundations first dropped. I don't really think anyone is making those theories up nowadays. Honestly, it sounds nothing like the leaks, which granted we didn't know about at the time. And also, just musically, even before, it just sounded far too modern for the band to have written in 2012. Gerard's vocals are much closer to the post-hesitant Alien sound in terms of production, mimicking a song like Baby You're a Haunted House much more than Fake Your Death. Also, the guitar parts are just far more advanced than they would have been in 2012. Besides, I can't really see Breakup era Gerard writing lyrics about growth from decay. It just feels far too introspective and grown up to have been right after Danger Days for me. My personal speculation, which hopefully we'll find out eventually, is that Foundations was written and recorded sometime early 2020.
Early 2022, not early 2020.
Late 2021 at the earliest. The next highly speculated Paper Kingdom song is Pinkish, off of the Pinkish Don't Try single that closed out the Hesitant Alien era. Pinkish has lyrics that distinctly echo the concept of dead children playing in a forest, with the chorus stating, Personally, I just don't think Gerard would have used a My Chem song without crediting the other guys for his solo stuff. Unless, of course, they had only had a vague idea for what they wanted to do with it and had just kept it in their back pocket and decided to pull it out years later. Realistically, Hesitant Alien is Gerard kind of pulling out his guts and showing us exactly how he's felt throughout his life without hiding behind a character or concept like he did for most of the MCR albums. In my opinion, I think this song is more about missing childhood and missing being close, either physically or emotionally, with Mikey. Or maybe it's about the breakup, like Genius suggests. Either way, I don't think it's from Paper Kingdom. Now, there is another Gerard solo track that never got officially recorded, and a lot of people speculate being from Paper Kingdom, and that song is Piano Jam / Ambulance, depending on who you're talking to. Piano Jam was only ever played live and is a deeply emotional song about fearing for the life of a loved one in the back of an ambulance. Again, knowing Mikey almost died following MCR's breakup, I think it's more likely that this song is about Mikey. But while the earliest recording I personally could find came from 2014, a full year after the breakup, I have seen some people say that MCR did play this song once or twice live during the Black Parade era. This could be completely false, but it is worth mentioning. Blood Infections by Frank Iero. Because it's called Blood Infections, and it's sad. It's a sad song. Look, I'm sorry, this is what some of you guys sound like. And listen, tin hatting MCR pays off quite frequently. And I wrote this script way before we got the leaks that we got earlier this week as I'm filming, that we are officially getting or pretty much officially, it is a leak, but pretty much officially getting a live album and getting Life on the Murder Scene 2. But I honestly just don't think there are a whole ass Paper Kingdom songs floating around out there. I just don't think any of the band members used Paper Kingdom for solo tracks. I'm sorry. There's also speculation that some of the Living with Ghosts demos were for Paper Kingdom, but considering that that whole album is a Black Parade anniversary album, I would say that's probably not the case. Any thematic overlap between Paper Kingdom and Black Parade is likely just Mike Hem revisiting Black Parade for inspiration for Paper Kingdom. I don't blame a band that was made up of 3/4 new fathers not wanting to write songs about children dying.
That, combined with everyone's failing mental health, it made sense to scrap the project and ultimately scrap the band altogether. Anyways, Paper Kingdom and MCR are dead, and they would never release new music or get back together and perform together ever again. Bye! Wake up, coward. You gotta go to school. And also, yes, this is a summer edition Red Bull that I have been hoarding for the past 3 months. Thanks for asking.
They made her a permanent flavor.
So, on Halloween 2019, MCR announced a reunion show in Los Angeles, California. This coming in hot on the heels of Frank Iero in particular, vehemently denying reunion rumors for like 3 whole years. I hate him. Following a sold-out show at the Shrine, My Kim announced an entire reunion tour for 2020! What a wonderful year where nothing bad happened at all! So yeah, tour gets postponed a couple of years, but honestly, if there is a silver lining to the pandemic, I think those 2 years were incredibly introspective for the band, and it allowed them to realize where exactly they wanted to go now that the band was back. It's just like 9/11, a horrible tragedy that killed thousands of people, and perhaps millions indirectly, but My Chemical Romance happened. They're like the Avatar, they show up when we need them most.
That's not at all how the Avatar works. The Avatar left when we needed them most. So it's like a reverse Avatar. I'm a fake fan. I don't know. I haven't watched this show like for real since I was in like the 3rd grade.
Foundations is such a beautiful representation of that. Recapping the band's origin story, dissecting the feelings of death and decay that came along with the band's departure, and finally that insistent, hopeful cry to get up, keep going, don't give up. Gerard himself has admitted to this tour feeling different multiple times. And again, in the interim of filming this video, Frank Iero did a whole like 2-hour podcast where he talked like ad nauseum about how like they all felt like they could be themselves on this tour, particularly Gerard, and just it's so delightful. I'm so glad they're back and happy. I would feel so guilty about being happy that they're back if they were miserable. But yeah, they're back. They're happy, they're healthy, they're practically a new band. They're not a nostalgia tour coasting on the laurels of their 20-year-old selves, but a band still creatively at their peak. If anything, I think it's actually good that I didn't start writing this video until after that first When We Were Young Fest show. Them mocking the desire for them to just like shut up and play the hits, parading around in like their old costumes with all these old man prosthetics, just like actively recreating and making fun of their performance style during that 3 Cheers era. Like, they are back. They are not interested in being their miserable burnout selves from the 2000s. And it seems like they're here to stay. Again, this was before leaks for the documentary, before leaks about them possibly booking more studio time.
So in the time it took for me to film this and then record this, the same guy who leaked the information about the alleged studio time being booked has come out and said not only that the studio time has been canceled, but the band is going on an indefinite hiatus. I do want to say first and foremost, has it leaked? The guy that leaked all this stuff is borderline just a gossip rag. He gets stuff wrong all the time. But also, because he baited people with negative leaks, potential bad news, he received death threats, which is not cool. It's not good. Do not send people death threats for like any reason, really, but especially not something that stupid. However, you swung a bat at the hornet's nest. I don't really know exactly what you expected. Like, you're not going to get a bunch of like, wow, really? Like you did when you leaked that they were going to be releasing new music. This is bad news. So maybe don't make a big deal about it if you don't want people to react negatively. Again, death threats bad, but like at the same time, You were kind of asking for people to call your legitimacy into question and also to, like, accuse you of, like, clickbaiting people, because you absolutely were. That being said, like I said, the Has It Leaked guy is basically a gossip rag for everything he gets right. He's either vague about what he gets right. So, for example, he said Paramore was going to release a new album in the spring, maybe. And then they didn't. It didn't come out until this spring, and they didn't even release This Is Why until September of last year, I think. So, but an indefinite hiatus and canceled studio time does not mean necessarily like a doomsday situation or that like they don't get along anymore. There was actually somebody on Reddit who mentioned that Gerard was having throat troubles again, which they found out from a supposed family friend or a family member who was a touring member or a touring crew member. Again, people go on the internet and love to lie, but people were calling into question how someone would know that as just a random touring crew member, but that is something that would impact those people's jobs. So it would be no different than being like, hey, Ray sprained his ankle or Frank's shoulder is bothering him again. You know, like any of those things would be things you would have to share with the crew because it would affect their jobs. So Gerard, whose job is to sing, not being able to sing or having to have to do certain workarounds to be able to sing would impact their jobs. So that is something that makes sense to me that would be shared with the crew. It's not like they're like, here's Gerard's blood type, you know? So also they've had the same touring members for like 10 years now. Like a lot of the same people they're touring with on this tour are the same people they were touring with back in 2007, 2008. So, or even earlier. So, you know, even if it wasn't necessary, it would probably be like, hey, how you doing? I'm not doing great, actually. You know, those kinds of conversations. So, again, I felt I should mention it. However, don't take that as like, this means they're not even going to tour again. Da, 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 da. People love to catastrophize in this fan base because it's just full of mentally ill people. But don't worry about it. It's all good.
They're back. They're back. We can just say they're back. So, Angel, where do we go from here? Obviously, I'm not a psychic. I cannot predict the future. However, with those leaks, with the fact that people were getting interviewed, like, good job hiding that you're doing a documentary, Mike Kemp. It's really, really sneaky and secretive of you. You're interviewing extremely popular MCR fan bloggers and Twitter accounts. Go off. But it seems very likely that we are going to be getting live albums, a documentary, probably a fifth album, or at the very least an EP. And even then, if we were only to get tours every couple of years from here on out because they miss hanging out and playing together, I would be happy with that because they're back in some capacity and they're happy and they're having a good time. I mean, the thesis statement of you're not in this alone goes both ways after all. I don't think beyond demo lovers, three bullets? I brought you my bullets, but there's only 3 of them. I'm very sorry. They're kind of expensive.
Say hi. Hello.
Okay, you have to get down. I gotta film something.